One of President Obama's big goals was to get a healthcare reform bill that was bipartisan. We'll look at some of the challenges of trying to get Republicans to support healthcare reform. All through the spring of 2009 and the summer of 2009, the Democrats spent a lot of time trying to woo Republicans and make sure that the healthcare reform bill was bipartisan. Senator Baucus in the Senate held meetings, so-called with the Gang of Six, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, to try to work out differences and make the bill bipartisan. In addition, my boss, Peter Orszag, head of the Office of Management and Budget, had a special relationship with Senator Olympia Snowe, Republican of Maine. He would regularly go up to the Hill, meet with Senator Snowe and her staff, get her concerns, the elements she wanted in the bill, come back to the White House and ask us to ensure that these provisions were in the bill. Despite all of these efforts, Republicans never came on board. A lot of work was being done through the summer, and it looked as if things were coming together. The 3 House committees had passed the bill by the end of July. And then there was the August congressional recess. That's when senators and representatives go back to their districts and states and talk to their constituents. Well, it turned out to be a disaster for healthcare reform. It was the moment when the Tea Party was born. Many of those town hall meetings became very acrimonious, shouting sessions with people against Obama's proposal, yelling at their congressmen and senators and denouncing them. It looked as if healthcare reform might die. Democrats were becoming nervous that it was unpopular. The president decided to address a joint session of Congress. And on September 9, 2009, he got up and saved healthcare reform. He gave an impassioned speech as to why we needed to pass healthcare reform. It was a memorable speech, not just for the president's passion and ability to rally the country again, but because the president was denounced by a Republican representative from the floor who accused him of lying. It will go down in history as an infamous moment. The president did save healthcare reform, and it began going forward. All through the process, it is important to understand the role of the Congressional Budget Office, a little-known agency in Washington. The CBO, as it is known, is the official scorekeeper of legislation. It determines how much legislation will cost, whether the revenue being raised is enough to cover the bill, and whether a piece of legislation will add to the deficit or not. It's important to anticipate how the CBO will judge a bill. We set up in the Office of Management and Budget a shadow effort to try to guess how the CBO would score. We did pretty well. And the final Senate bill came in at actually saving over $100 billion over the course of the first 10 years of healthcare reform. That ensured that healthcare reform would be seen as fiscally responsible. Well, the House committees had passed the bill in July 2009. The full House did not vote on that bill until November, largely because the House was worried that the Senate was never going to pass the bill, and they didn't want to take a controversial vote without assurance that the bill would get a hearing in the Senate. In November 2009, the House passed the bill, but the Senate still couldn't get together. Finally, on Christmas Eve, December 24, 2009, Harry Reid got healthcare reform passed through the Senate. And everyone was confident that finally, after 100 years, healthcare reform would be enacted. But the Senate bill and the House bill were different. Soon after the new year, negotiations began. And then suddenly a shock hit the country. Surprisingly, Senator Kennedy died in August 2009. A special election had to be held to replace him in the Senate. A surprise thing happened. A Republican, Scott Brown, won that election in January 2010. And it looked like healthcare reform would never happen. Democrats lost their 60-vote majority in the Senate. The only way to pass healthcare reform would be for the House to pass the Senate's exact bill. This was difficult for several reasons. First, there were these special deals in the Senate bill that the House didn't want to take. like the special deal with Senator Nelson called the Cornhusker deal that gave